Hey, did you know that plastic is produced with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? Wouldn't it just be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic. They sell products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection of products like toothbrushes, food storage containers, drinking straws. And the best part is that they're also very reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free. Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Nature Wanderer podcast. I'm Paul, your host, and this morning, it is bright early morning. I'm up with the sun. Yeah, sunrise. I don't know how many of you have ever witnessed an actual sunrise, but it's a beautiful time of the day, in my opinion. I'm out here this early in my yard doing some bird banding. If you remember my very first episode, I did some saw-whet owl banding. And if you didn't, go back. I encourage you to go back and listen to the very first episode I ever did. It's all about banding saw-whet owls, tiny little owls. But today I'm actually doing daytime banding. I'm out in the morning and I am going to be banding birds. This is one of my favorite parts of the whole bird banding process. I'm doing a thing called MAPS, a project called MAPS Bird Banding, MAPS, which stands for Monitoring Avian means birds, Productivity and Survivorship. And I've got some nets set up around my property. My 12 acres, different habitats. Most of them are in open field, but I do have some that are close to the pond, and I have a few nets that are in the woods as well. And I just approached my first net, and I'm going to be opening it. They're kept closed when I'm not using them because we don't want any birds just getting stuck in the nets. And I'll describe that in a little while, but I just love this part of the day because I get to open the nets, yes, but it's just so peaceful out here. If you listen, all the birds calling, the sun is just coming up. There's an orange hue to the sky behind me. That's because I'm walking west right now. And most people are still in bed, so I don't have a lot of traffic noise at my house. All I'm hearing is the wildlife, the birds. They're pretty noisy this morning. They're enjoying today. So I'm at my net. Out in my field, my first net is actually out in the field, and I've got two 10-foot tall bars, metal tubing, and on the metal tubing is my net stretched between them. It's 12 meters long, the net, and it's approximately 10 feet tall. Now it doesn't touch the ground because I don't want the birds getting caught in the bottom section of the net and laying on the ground. So it doesn't touch the ground, gives them a little bit of, leeway with room. And the whole thing is stretched taut between some rebar that I have pounded into the ground, and that keeps the net nice and tight.
It's what we call a mist net. Oh, the moon's out too. It was full just a couple of days ago, so it's absolutely beautiful. Nice clear night, or day, sorry. Remember, it's early in the morning right now, and I'm still partly asleep. So there's a fog down in the valley. There's a few clouds in the sky. And actually, while I'm walking here, I have my Merlin app. I've talked about the Merlin app before. It's a app on my phone that records the birds, identifies birds. I've got it running right now. It is recording all the birds I'm hearing because part of this MAPS protocol, I'm headed on to my next net. Part of the MAPS protocol is not just catching birds and banding them, but it's also seeing what birds are in the area. Remember, we're monitoring avian productivity and survivorship, so we want to know, are these birds in the area? Because you're not going to catch every single bird in the net. It just won't happen. I've been hearing bobolinks up in my neighbor's field just above me. I get them in my field every once in a while, but they love his field up above me, and I rarely catch them. I have caught some in the past. This year I haven't caught any, which is weird. So I'm listening too, and Merlin's listening for me as well, because I've found, thanks to Merlin, I found that even though I'm pretty good at identifying, most birds by sound, I'm listening to the ones that I know and are common to me, but it seems to pick up some birds that I don't hear in the background. Yeah, it always seems to catch that one bird that's just off in the distance a little bit that for some reason or other I didn't hear. Net number 2, and I'm opening that up. I have to stick with a screw in it because I cannot reach 10 feet high on my own. So that helps me to pull the nets up, push them up to the very top. And this net last week was a mess. The net that I'm at, it had a June bug stuck in the net. When they get stuck in the net, they fight to get out, and their little legs get caught in it, and they start tangling it, and the poor thing was, stuck in it. And by the time I got here, he must have been in here for a few days. He was no longer with us, unfortunately, and he was really tangled in the net and tough to get out. It took me about 5 minutes to get the poor thing out. Just tighten up on the ropes on the end. Okay. But yeah, it was just a tough net to open last week. Easy this time. So as I was saying, it's just absolutely beautiful out here. The sun's not up over the horizon yet. I can see it peeking up and by the trees. It's getting brighter over there. Moon's up in the west, almost full, just kind of hidden just by a whisper of a cloud. There are some more clouds in the distance, not a lot. I do record the weather, so the cloud cover, the temperatures, recording the precipitation. Of course, there is none today. If there was, I wouldn't be banding. I'd be back in bed. I would have woken up and said, oh, it's raining. I'm going back to bed. Yeah, you can't band when it's wet. It's harmful for the birds, and I do everything, all bird banders do everything in their power to make sure the birds are kept safe. We don't want any birds getting harmed. Does it happen? Unfortunately, every once in a while it does. When a bird really gets tangled in a net and it takes forever to get the poor thing out, it stresses them out, but we do everything we can to make sure that the birds are not harmed during bird banding. So I am at my third net, opening it up. I have 9 nets in total that I use during winter banding. I also do winter banding. During winter banding, I only have 1 net set up, and that's right by my bird feeders, which is where all the birds want to be because that's where all the food is. So there's different types of banding. Each one has its own protocol. Winter banding that I do is pretty easygoing. Not a lot of protocol for that. With MAPS banding, there's more protocols that I have to follow with it. I have to have my nets spread out across the area that I'm using. I have to draw a diagram of my nets, where every net is, and send that into the bird banding lab. I have 10-day blocks that I can do the bird banding in. There's 10 of these 10-day blocks. During those 10-day block, I have to do banding once. And that data gets collected and it gets sent in. Now, I don't start at block number 1. Okay, there's 10 sessions. I actually start at 4, and the reason is because I'm in the north, the northeastern US. Someone down in the south, they get started at block 1. And as you work your way up further, you know, the breeding isn't happening until later. As you work your way up towards my area, the northeast, then you are only starting at block 4. So I started at block 4 this year. Block 5 I skipped this year, which I usually don't skip sessions, but I wasn't here. I was on vacation in Iceland. Kind of hard to bird band when I'm in Iceland, and I was gone for the entire 10-day block. So we are in banding session number 6. So this is 6, and I am going to be going right up to session 10. And after that, I stop. So strict protocol about when you can band. I cannot band more than once during a 10-day session. And I usually try to get someone to cover a session if I'm not going to be there, like when I'm on vacation, but I have trouble in the other bird banders in the area because you have to be licensed to do this. You can't just set up nets in your yard and start catching birds. It just doesn't work that way. So I have to find another bird bander, and they're busy doing their own map sessions, so it's not easy to find someone to do it. So bird banding, if you didn't listen to my first episode on the saw-whet owl banding, bird banding is where you capture these birds in a net. It's called a mist net. It's very fine so the birds don't see it, and they fly into it because they can't see it, and they get caught in the net. It doesn't harm the bird at all. And then I come around every half hour checking the nets, and I'll take the bird out of the net. I'll put it in a bag because, hey, you can't see me, I'm safe. That's the mentality anyhow. And so they feel more secure and safe. I put them in this bag, gently close up the bag, and I take them back to my banding station, which is in my garage, and I collect data on them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I actually do it. And all this data that I collect gets sent off to the government, the bird banding lab, and it is then put into a database. They, of course, go through it, do checks on it, make sure the data is accurate, and it goes off to the bird banding lab, and from there scientists can request the data and do any type of research that they're doing with that data. And that's basically what bird banding is all about. Okay, I'm going to finish opening nets here, and I will be back when I do a net run, which is when I go around to check the nets. And I'm back, and I'm on my first net run, and the sun is now over the horizon. Moon's still up. Looks really neat. I'm going to get a picture of it for you, but the moon is up, and it's got a cloud that's really thin running right through the middle of it. And the birds are still quite noisy. I just came up to my very first net, number 1, and I've got someone caught in it. So they didn't see it. Now there's 4 sections to each net. They're called trommels. And the trommels have a heavy cord going in between them. And that holds the net taut. And then the netting in between the trommels is a little bit looser. So the bird flies into it, and then they fall into the bottom of the trommel. And so this bird came flying in. It's a juvenile, a young one, the red-winged blackbird. I could tell by the plumage. And he's got a band on his leg already, which means I probably banded him my last session. Okay, so I gently took him out of the net. The way you do that is you got to remember they fly in head first. Birds don't fly backwards. He flew in head first and got stuck, so I always look for the rump of the bird, the back of the bird, because the last thing in should be the first thing out. When I was walking up to the net, I could tell which side of the net the bird was in. Don't want to try to pull a bird through the net. The netting is kind of thin. It's kind of hard to do that. You're going to either squish the bird or you're going to break the net to get them through. So I always check to make sure which side the bird is on. And this guy I went over to that side of the net, took the bird out from that side, gently took him out. There's special holds that you use. I held him once I got him, in my hand, I held him with my thumb on the back, fingers on the belly, and I slowly worked the net over his wings, over the head, got him out of the net, and then he went right into the bag. So I've got these little bags with a rope on the top that closes them up. And once he was in the bag, I closed up the bag with the rope, tied it on top, because sometimes, especially with smaller birds, they'll work their way up through the top of the bag. So you got to tie it off. Not real tight, it's just a gentle, loop around, tie it. And then I put a clip on. Every net I've got clips hanging on the ropes that hold it taut. And the clips are clothespins. And every clip has a number on it. So the net I just came from, that was net 1. It had several clips. There's probably about 10 clips on it, and all of them have a number 1 on it. So I took one of those clips, went around the rope on the bag, and the bag is hanging around my neck right now. So I know which net the bird came from, because all of that information has to be recorded as well. And I'm on my way to net 2. And I can actually see net 3 as I'm walking past it. It's down in the field a little ways. Net 3 and 4 are right around my old deserted pond old farmer's pond. Net 2, I've got 2 birds in it. Just came up to net 2. And it looks like I've got a song sparrow. It's funny, I was just talking about these guys last night. My wife said, boy, the orioles are so short-lived around here. We see them for a couple of weeks and then they disappear. Yes, I've got an oriole, female oriole in the net. I have to see if she's still breeding. And let's get this guy out first, only because I came to him first. This is a song sparrow. I've got my thumb on his back, fingers on the belly, and I'm working that net over the wings. Got it off the wings, over the head, got it off the head. He is now free. I've got him in my hand in a grip that we call the Bander's grip. And the Bander's grip is just a loose where I've got my second finger, my pointer finger if you want to call it that, and my middle finger around the neck very loosely. Oh, this is a Savannah sparrow. Yeah, it's got the yellow around over the eye. Not a song sparrow, Savannah sparrow. And got the grip around, and I just put my hand in the bag, let go, drop them in the bag, and then I go on to the next bird. And we've got a female oriole. Yeah, so like I said, last night I was just talking, we were sitting on my patio, my wife and I, and we were watching the birds at the bird feeders. My wife was saying, I still keep an orange out, but she says, I've only seen the orioles like twice this year. I don't know what's going on. We used to see them for quite a while. And so she was thinking, yeah, they must have moved out. I've got the oriole out, going in the bag now. She said, they must have moved on already. It's like, nope, they're still around. They just aren't coming to the feeders when we're watching the feeders, apparently. I mean, someone's been eating the orange. Of course, I've seen some other birds at the orange. Not just the orioles. And now I'm grabbing 2 clips. And they're on the bags. And we're off to the next net. So this is the process of what bird banders call a net run. A net run is where you just walk around to the nets. I do this every half hour. The number of nets I have, it usually takes anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes. Oh, see, I was wrong. I saw this net from up above, but the grass is so high I didn't see the bottom trommel. And I do have a bird in it. Oh, yes, I know. He does not want to be handled. And I got someone up in the honeysuckle bushes yelling at me. So I'm guessing this is either a mate or it's a youngster, and whoever's up in the bushes is here to watch and make sure that the baby doesn't get harmed. And he's out. Okay. This is a brown thrasher. Beautiful, long, rusty colored tail, long beak with a little bit of curve on the end, spots on the belly, brown in color, really large bird, about the size of a robin. And he's in the bag. Put a clip on the bag, and on to the next net. Yeah, sometimes you can almost tell if it's a mate or a baby, a fledgling, because the parent, oh boy, we got a full run here. Next net has a bird in it as well. These 2 nets are real close together because they're around the pond. One's on the south side of the pond, one's on the east side of my pond. And so this guy looks like he's a little bit tangled. It's the song sparrow, and he's been spinning around in the net. So tail is all tangled in it, so I gotta get the tail tangled. Unspin them. Hate when they do that, but yeah, they're struggling to get out of the net. I can't blame them. I actually have them in my hands, both hands, and I'm spinning them around, getting them untangled. There we go. And there's the rump. Grab the rump. Spun around so much he lost a couple of tail feathers. And yep, this is song sparrow. So I'm working the net over the wings again. So he wasn't as bad as he looked. And get it over the head. Now he's just gripping onto the net with the feet, and you do the pinch and pull, as I call it. You basically grab the foot. Everything's done gently. So when I'm saying grab, it's not like I'm, really wrenching on the legs or anything. But I kind of pinch the foot between my fingers and pull out. That way, I'm basically working the net off of the feet. And this guy will go into a bag. I've got a bag full of bags here. And you got to be real quick at tying it, because they will, especially the smaller birds like song sparrows, they try to fly out right away. And put a clip on. And head on to the next net. Okay, so I've checked all the nets, and usually the first few net runs are the busiest. I'm headed back to my station now, the banding station, aka my garage, and I've got 5 birds. That's pretty good. The nets, last few nets that I have in the woods, they don't get as many till later in the day, but the first few net runs early in the morning, this is why I'm up at sunrise. First few net runs, that's when the birds are just waking up. They're getting noisy, they're out there trying to gather their food before it gets too hot during the day. And so they're out there doing their business, flying around, and that's when they mostly get caught in the nets. They're very active early morning. So that's why I'm out, early morning catching the birds. So like the first 2 or 3 net runs is when I get the most birds. And then it slows down after that. So I'm gonna head on in, and probably won't do it with this net run, but I'm gonna be busy. I got a lot of birds to process in like 15 minutes. And I'm going to talk about the processing when it slows down a little bit and I have a little more time, so I can explain it a little more in detail. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so it's a little later in the day. Things are slowing down, so I have a little time to explain what I'm doing. I'm in the banding station, aka my garage, and I have one bird I caught right now. It is a Baltimore Oriole. I just took it out of the bag. I explained the bander's grip earlier, where I have it between the head, the neck is between my pointer finger and my middle finger, real loose grip, so I can maneuver the bird, I can look at the bird, but he can't get away. Now, I look for Baltimore Oriole, which is a 1A. The band sizes come in different sizes. I have 1A, 0, 1B, 1, 0A. Some of the larger birds take a 2. Each band is made of metal, it's circular, and it has all these numbers on it in sequential order. So I'm going to look at the band. I took a 1A band off of my string, and the last three numbers are 296. I look at my 1A sheet where I'm writing everything down, and 296 is correct. I was going to just double check, make sure the last three numbers. There's actually 9 numbers on the band, total of 9 numbers. And I have special pliers that open the band up. It is circular. And I put it in the end of the pliers, and I place it on the leg of the bird just by squeezing the pliers together, and it crimps the band together. And I check it to make sure it's a good fit, it's closed tightly, and then I start processing the bird. And first thing I do is I take a wing measurement. I have a ruler here with a little stop on it. I put the tip of the wing up, or actually it's the shoulder, up into that little notch, and I look, and it is 93. So 93 centimeters. And right down, that's a Baltimore Oriole. BAOR. There's a 4-letter banding code for each species. It's usually like Baltimore Oriole, you take it's 2 words, first 2 letters of each word. BA, Baltimore, OR, Oriole. So BAOR is the code. And then I am going to look at the feathers. I'm going to split the feathers on the back of the neck, and I'm going to pull the skin up a little bit. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see the skull of the bird. The skin is so thin you can actually see the skull. This is a 6. The skull is a 6, which means it's full. It's an older bird. Younger birds will have like a 1 or 2. It's just starting to pneumatize. It's starting to solidify. So you can actually see that happening in the skull. You can see just like a little triangle of white, or maybe a bigger triangle of white. But this one's all white. It's a full skull. It's a 6. Now I'm going to blow on the belly. Okay, so I'm looking at a few things. I start at the bottom, I head right up to the neck. And the first thing I'm looking at is for cloacal protuberance, the male sex organ on a bird. It's called a cloacal protuberance. Now this one does have one. It's not very big, so I'm going to put a 1. It's 1, 2, or 3. And then a brood patch where the belly of the bird is bare. So I'm splitting the feathers apart. If there's feathers all over the belly, no brood patch. If it's bare on the belly, that's that they could put skin against the eggs. That means it's a brood patch. The bird's breeding, it's on the nest. Usually females, but there are some males of some species that will have a brood patch because they're also incubating the eggs, but it's mostly female, so there is no brood patch here. Then I was looking in the neck area to see how much fat is there, and there's a 2. Okay, so that goes up to, the fat actually goes up to a 7, which rarely get more than a 4. 4 is filled, 3 is half, 2 is light, 1 is trace, no fat is a 0. Body molt, well, I was blowing on there, I was looking for any new feathers coming in. There was no feathers, so that's a 0. Flayed feather molt. Now I'm going to open up the wing here. Once again, I got my bandages grip so I can turn the bird over. Open up the wing. I'm not seeing, oh, wait a minute. I am seeing new feather coming in. Let's look at the other side. Yep, there's a new feather on that side too, in the same area. So I'm going to put an S for symmetrical. Flight feather wear. Now I'm looking at the tips of the feathers. Oh yeah, there's a lot of damage to them. Babies will have a 0. their feathers are like pristine. As they get older, the feathers start to wear out. This one has a 2. Okay, so that's flight feather wear. It goes up to a 5. So there's a little bit of wear on there. If the feathers are like broken, shattered, that's a 3 or a 4 usually. I've never really gotten to a 5. Juvenile plumage, there was none. Soft, wispy feathers is juvenile plumage. Now I'm going to look at the back of the wing. I'm looking at the primary coverts, and these are kind of wide. Yeah, I got a couple of new feathers coming in. Yeah, so we've got a mix of adult feathers and formative feathers. So we have, so we're going to go in R, which is juvenile and basic on the primary coverts. Primaries, we've got the same thing happening, so we're going to go with an R. And then on the retrices, which are the tail feathers, these are all, these are all juvenile. I don't see any new ones coming in. So we will go with juvenile on that. And that makes this bird age is a 5. So this is a 2nd year bird. And I know that by P and S, plumage and skull. And the last thing I am going to do, I just turned down my scales. I'm going to write down the status, which is 300. The date is 0705. The time that I caught the bird, 7:10. The net number, this bird was in net number 3. Remember I said there were clips on the nets? And finally, I have a scale here with a stocking on it. And I take the stocking off. You have to tear it with the stocking on. And I put it on my hand, my right hand. I wrap my hand around the bird. And then I pull the stocking off my hand and over the bird. That way it contains the bird, doesn't hurt the bird. And I just place it on the scale. And 30.7 is the mass, the weight of the bird, and that's in grams. Now I can reach into the stocking, take the bird out, and we're done processing the bird. Now that probably took me, about 5 minutes to do. Normally, because when I'm not explaining it to someone, it takes much less time. I can do a bird in about 30 seconds to a minute, depending on the bird and how much information I have to gather and how much information is questionable. Like on this bird, there was some molt and I had to figure out what feathers they were. And he's yelling at me and there he goes. I let him go and he's flying off. And that's all there is to processing the bird, and all this information is written down, it's recorded, and it will be sent in. I will transfer it onto my computer at a later date, and it will be sent into the birding lab where scientists can use the data as they see fit. So that's the process of bird banding. Well, I hope you enjoyed learning about bird banding. Like I said, this is MAPS, Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survivorship. I am in session number 6 right now, which means I have 3 more sessions to do after this, because I go right up to session 10, which is usually ends the beginning of August. This is all done in the spring when the birds are breeding, because we want to know how, what the species are doing in what area. So I'm going to call it a day, get back to the bird banding, finish up the bird banding. I hope you enjoyed learning about bird banding, and if you did enjoy it, share it with your friends, get them interested in the podcast, and the more the merrier. Love to have more people listening to the podcast. Rate and review the podcast. Of course, if you want to support me, and the podcast, help buy new equipment, and you can go to Patreon, my Patreon page. The link is in the show notes, or Ko-Fi. That link is also in the show notes. If you'd like to buy some awesome merchandise, my store link is in the show notes. You can buy some really cool Nature Wanderer t-shirts. I also have some cloth shopping bag. There's a lot of different merchandise in the shop, so check it out. If you ever have any questions or ideas for future episodes, I'd love to hear them. You can always drop me a DM. My Instagram page is the Nature Wanderer _ in between each of the words, or you can go to my website, which is naturewanderer.org. I always answer my DMs as quickly as I can. And above all, have a great day and keep exploring the nature around you.
Hello, nature lovers. Do you love to read books like I do? I've always enjoyed reading books ever since I was a kid, especially books about nature. Unfortunately, as I get older, I find myself with less and less time to sit down with a good book. I've solved that problem with Audible. Audible allows you to listen to your favorite titles while you are driving, at the gym, taking a walk, wherever you are. With all the latest titles, you'll have quite a selection to choose from. And they have podcasts too. Start listening today with a free 30-day trial. To get your free 30-day trial, go to the show notes and click on the link. Happy listening.